And that was enough for us to say,
There's no substitute for a signed contract from someone, right? Can you talk about him yet?
one of them.
Okay.
One of them like he did.
Welcome to the Tech Transfer Podcast. I'm Dave Brown. I'm here with Manny Griffiths, who is the founder and CEO of Hona, which is a legal software company. So, Manny, can you tell us a little bit about that and specifically how you decided to approach the problem that you approached?
Yeah. So at Hona, we're solving the number one bar complaint, which is client communication.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had personal experience with this. Kind of two things, really. The first thing was that I worked at a legal tech company that dealt with a lot of personal injury law firms. They deal with all sorts of law firms, but I had a bunch of those law firms when I was selling them software ask me, hey, does your software have a Domino's pizza tracker or a pizza tracker for our cases? And I was like, pizza tracker for cases? Why do you tell me about that?
Yeah.
And they would say, oh, we just get so many phone calls of people asking for status updates on their case.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, that's so fascinating. And kind of at this same time, my wife was in a car accident. So she was in Orem going to work, and she got rear-ended by a big truck with a dump trailer.
Mm-hmm.
And so we hired a law firm, and a few months later, I was the one calling and asking for status updates.
Yeah,
so
yeah, exactly.
I learned, firsthand that, law firms are busy. They don't have time to just constantly adhere to their clients' needs and requests for information. And so that's why I set out to go solve that issue and help attorneys, communicate really seamlessly and smoothly.
Well, and that's such a great pain point. So I worked as a law firm attorney for about 6 years, and I believe our malpractice companies, like you have a malpractice provider, and every year they're giving you some kind of presentation, and their number one thing they said was the failure to communicate with the client is where liability comes from. That you must have seen that when you're working with clients. So
yeah, and I need to contact these insurance companies and see if I can get my firms a discount for using Hona.
Yeah.
Because
you should.
It makes sense. I mean, you can get a discount on your homeowner's insurance if you have an alarm system, because it prevents burglaries and whatnot. I'm like, it's the same thing.
Well, and if anyone doesn't understand the economics of the problem, like if your firm gets hit with a malpractice claim, there will be immediately some cost, and it's huge, like $250,000, $500,000, just even if it's like an almost frivolous claim, if it's not too serious. And most of those claims are going to come from lack of communication in one way or another.
Right.
Right. So good. So how does your tool solve that problem? What does it do?
Yeah. So we connect with a law firm's CRM, and they can set up automations that send out text updates. They can send out forms to be filled out by clients, e-signature documents. So it's just constantly texting and communicating with clients so that they're, apprised as to what's going on with their case. And it when it does communicate, they have a text message, they go into a portal. We also have an app that they can log into to see the status of their case and kind of what's going on in the background.
Okay, and all of this would be, Hona is Hona, right? So Hona.com, people could go and see that.
Yep.
I have seen similar companies, like is Solution Reach dental offices, like there are some different niches in different industries that do the same sort of thing. Have you ever been tempted to slide into another industry as well, or?
We have. That was always kind of the vision for Hona. We wanted to go into different verticals like, medical, dental, insurance claims. The thing is, the longer I do this, the more I say, I don't want to do that, because when you can solve one pain point really, really well, it just attracts more people. The marketing's better, the tool, the technology's better. So I think that was originally what we were thinking, but now we're like, we love legal. We want to solve this problem and just be in the legal space.
Yeah. It's huge in legal, huge industry, and high dollar industry as well, right?
Yeah. Well, I think the question from investors is is legal a big enough market for Hona to be a huge company?
Oh, yeah.
And so they always question that. But the thing, the trend these days is if you're a software company that serves one niche, you just create other products. And that's how you, generate more money and a bigger TAM. So
have you introduced other products yet?
We're releasing 2 in the next 3 months. And so we have different features within Hona. There's a lot that it can do. It's more than just a pizza tracker, but we have 2 products that are coming out soon.
Okay. Can you talk about them yet, or are they confidential still?
Yeah, I can talk about them. One of them.
Okay.
One of them I can.
Perfect. Okay, good.
But one of them is a tool that qualifies leads on a law firm's website, so that they can, they can get, when people come on their website, they can see if it could be a case for them and quickly call that person and sign them up. So it's a really cool intake and conversion tool. The other one is an AI tool that is going to be huge. It's going to be massive in our space, and it's really going to disrupt how firms use technology. So that's all I'll say for now.
That's great. And so you're thinking ahead strategically that the notices and the service, your core service right now, might not be bread and butter a few years down the road because technology is just changing so fast, right?
Yeah, it's really interesting because, I think in 3 years, one of these new products might be our biggest product. You just don't know. I think that could very easily happen. It's changing so fast, especially in legal. There's so much disruption right now.
Okay, and so Hona came out of Y Combinator, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell us about your experience with that?
Yeah. Admittedly, initially I was not gung-ho on doing Y Combinator, but my co-founders convinced me. They were like, it's really cool. How cool is it for the rest of your life to say you started a Y Combinator company?
Yeah.
So I went in and I had I was a little skeptical, but it was a really cool experience. So it's like, 3 or 4 month boot camp essentially on how to make your startup a unicorn. That's what they try to do. And one of the coolest things I got out of it was just asking the different partners on their opinions on what, if we were running into a problem, we'd ask them all.
Yeah.
And they'd all give us a different thing. Some people were aligned, but the combination of us asking and researching and having a hypothesis and talking to people helped us come up with the solution. And so it was really cool from that perspective to ask people and to go out and seek and find. So that was really the coolest part. People that had started big companies, the group partners at Y Combinator have started really cool companies. So.
Oh, yeah. So Airbnb and what else? Just lots of household names, right? Yeah. To me, I think the other day someone asked me who's kind of not in the entrepreneurship world, what is Y Combinator? And that just took me aback. It's like asking what's the Super Bowl, if you're interested in entrepreneurship. So doing it seems like a no-brainer if you're in the space, right? But so did you actually live out there for the 3 months, or how does that work?
So our batch was the last batch that you didn't have to live.
Oh, okay.
In the Bay Area. Now going forward, it's all you fly out there for 3 months.
Yeah.
So they stopped it for COVID, and for a few years they stopped, and then.
So you were on Zoom, and you said you were talking to a lot of people, obviously brainstorming with people in the group, right? And some of the ideas, you read up on these companies, some of their concepts changed dramatically over the course of Y Combinator. But then on the ground, who were you talking to get your validation?
Yeah, so they assign you like one partner that's like your direct representative, but then there's partners in your group that you can go to as well. But you could also go to you could even go to the president of Y Combinator, Gary Tan, or like Michael Siebel, who started Twitch. He was a partner there, and Dalton Caldwell. Like they'll all talk to you and help you collaborate. So that was interesting. Another interesting thing, like we should talk about raising money. I have never sent an outbound email to raise money after Y Combinator.
Oh, really?
Everyone comes to us,
wow,
which is crazy. So like I learned, that's the second big thing I've learned is that if you can get a stamp from Y Combinator, or if you have a good brand, then it's way easier to raise. So that was interesting.
Wow. Yeah, for business, it's like going to an Ivy League school, right? You get that on there, and then people know that you're credible. So have you raised a lot of money for the business, or? Yeah,
we've raised a little over $12 million.
Okay.
So we rose really early on, kind of the friends and family. Then we did a Y Combinator and a seed round, and then we closed our Series A, $10 million earlier this year.
Okay. And were any of those funders local, or were they just from all over the place?
We had a couple of scout checks with our seed round. So like Peterson Ventures, they put a check in when we did our seed.
Nice.
There's a really cool entrepreneur, Austin Allred. He started Bloom Tech, and
oh yeah, I've seen him.
Yeah, he invested. So a couple local guys.
Okay,
which is fun.
That's cool.
I wish we would have done more, but that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, and it's also impressive. Like getting into Y Combinator, did you apply for it, or how did the opportunity come up?
We actually applied 3 times. So the first time was kind of like on a whim. We were just like, let's try it. The next time we tried it, we got an interview, and we were really close, but they turned us down, and they were like, hey, apply again. Yeah. Third time we applied, and we had pretty dramatic revenue growth. And they told us when we interviewed, they said, we've actually been really hesitant to accept legal tech companies because they're not incentivized to be efficient, and technology makes it more efficient. Yes, with law firms, you're trying to bill more.
That's right.
And so they were like, but obviously you're doing something that's working because you're growing so fast. So that's why they let us in.
Yeah, I guess my theory on that would be that attorneys don't want to do, to a practicing attorney, reaching out to clients, and then that part of it is the grunt work. Like if they can spend more time drafting briefs and things like this, then that's great, right?
Totally, exactly. So. And one last comment on it. One of the interesting things we work with billing firms, of course, but a lot of the firms we work with do flat fee or contingency fee.
Yeah.
So I think, a lot of the layman always thinks of hourly billing, but there are, a huge chunk of the market does flat fee and hourly, or flat fee and contingency fee.
Yeah, no, I mentioned I was a commercial bankruptcy attorney, and I had 2 years there where we had a really large case that was completely contingency. So
really?
I could just use my time however I wanted.
Yeah.
And definitely having tools for efficiency was a priority.
Did you like that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, that was a great time. So you had worked for a legal tech company, and then you decided to become an entrepreneur. How did you decide to do it, and how did you know you had the right skills for it?
Yeah. I had always wanted to. I was always going to start a company. My dad he started a bunch of businesses, and he always told me that if you want, the way you can make the most money and have the most freedom is starting a business. And so I always wanted to. It was interesting when I worked at that company early on. One of my mentors was like, this is working out well. You're doing well at this company, but you want to start one of these companies. Like, I didn't even tell him that.
That's cool.
So I was like, yeah, I do. That's what I want to do.
Yeah, you would think that people in the workplace would try to keep you there where you're useful to them. That's not been my experience at all, though. People are pretty supportive of your professional goals a lot of times, right?
For sure. That's one of the hardest parts of me running a company now is I want to tell all my employees, if you want to go start a business, go do it. But I also want to keep them.
Yeah.
So I would love a cool measure of success would be to see how many of my employees go off and start companies and businesses.
Yeah. Well, so let's back up to your education. So you're at BYU as an undergrad, right? And what did you study here?
I studied finance.
Okay. So how did finance lead into your first job? What was your first one?
Yeah. So my first job was, it was interesting. I was actually thinking of going to law school. And so I was preparing to take the LSAT. I actually put in 100 hours. I studied a lot.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. And I was taking, it was my last semester, and one of my friends was like, hey, you should come work at this company, Filevine. They're in Provo. They're in legal tech. You'll get to learn the legal space. And I was like, oh, perfect. I'll do that for my last semester. And that last semester, I took a class in the finance program. What is it called? Something Ventures, Financing Ventures. But it was taught by Kickstart, the VC out of Salt Lake.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And it was like, when I was in that class, I was like, I don't want to go to law school anymore. I have to be in tech.
Really?
So it really influenced me. Taking that class, it made me think, you're not going to, this is what you want to be in tech. You want to start something in this realm rather than in the legal world.
That's so great. Well, I know Gavin Christensen from Kickstart is teaching a class on campus right now. So I think they've kept that going.
Good.
And so good to hear. So so finance, and that makes sense. So you went in a finance role probably, Filevine?
I actually didn't. I started off, the only openings they had were in sales. So I started off as a BDR, the lowest rung on the totem pole for, so I was outbound calling, smiling and dialing for law firms. So that's what I did. Yeah,
good. And so you're excited for the LSAT. They got rid of the game section. I don't know if you heard. Maybe you know that. You're around attorneys. Why would they do that?
So I'm going back. I'm going to take the test now.
Oh, okay. that
was what killed me.
That was so fun, though.
Yeah.
But good. Was there anything else about BYU that kind of helped you as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think lots. There was one of some of the classes I really enjoyed were, I was in the business school, and they had entrepreneurs come and speak to you. I can't remember the class, but it was like a 1-credit class.
Yeah, there was kind of a lecture class. Yeah,
lecture series. That was so inspiring to me.
Yeah, me too.
To see people and they've done it, and I those type of things I just got a ton out of.
Yeah, do you remember any of the speakers who came?
I remember Todd Peterson from Vivint spoke.
Yeah.
There was another guy that started I'll never forget his speech. He started a company that, anyway, they did financial derivatives, and he made a bunch of money. I can't remember his name, but it was really cool what he did.
Smart. Yeah. Well, that's great. And So you've talked about hiring the right people and trying to keep people, but what is your approach to finding talent?
Yeah. I mean, we were about 60 people right now. So we're not to the point where like we're still hiring friends of friends.
Okay.
And so we'll post in our Slack channel, our internal communication, and say, hey, we're hiring a BDR, and we've gotten such good candidates from that. Nice. And I find that like in an early stage company like us, you really want to be homogenous. Like I really believe in like diversity of thought. I think it's so good for companies. But for like where we're at now, we need people to be friends and on the same level because it's hard and things change a lot and you got to be scrappy. And so it helps to have friends of friends and like a really tight-knit culture. So that's been the best place for us to find talent as of right now.
That's interesting. Well, the classic, you think of the PayPal Mafia as like a group that really had it together, but super homogenous. They were all the same person.
Yeah.
And then they went on and did amazing things.
Yeah, so. All of them. It's crazy. That group's crazy.
Yeah, I was just listening to someone like that, some successful entrepreneur today, saying that they kind of missed the early days when it was just a group of people who were all on the same page. What's are you into the entrepreneurship experience like that? Like, what are your views?
Yeah, I think that we're definitely not big enough for me to be unhappy. Like, I love what I'm doing now, but I think there'll get to a point where it's not as fun. I think I love being scrappy. I love, making quick decisions, but you get to a point where it's not like that. Yeah. So, let's see.
A lot of entrepreneurs like launch a company that at some point they need an institutional CEO to come in. But lately, there are a lot of big stories of people who don't do that. Like starter stays there the whole time. Do you picture yourself being with the company for the long term, or would you hand it off at some point?
Founder mode. This was that Paul Graham thing that came out a few weeks ago. Yeah. No, I see myself seeing it out for a long time. Okay. And that's kind of, I don't know how long, but like they say plan on 7 to 10 years. That's a long time to me. Yeah. And it could be way longer. But I think when you're starting a startup, plan on 7 to 10, you're in it. So we're 3 years at this point today. So
okay. Well, let's talk about kind of the good and the challenges. Like, what have you enjoyed so far the most about Hona?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I like to see, I've really loved seeing employees grow. So like we've had people start off where I started off at my first job as a BDR, cold calling law firms, work their way up into like more senior sales roles and make a ton of money. Yeah. And like provide for their families, and they're buying houses and they're doing really well. And I see their skill set change too. Like they learn so much and grow. And so that's been really fun. I think the other fun thing for me is just seeing like solving hard problems. I run into so many hard things all the time. Some of our partner companies we've had like that will release similar functionality to what we do, and you're like, oh, that changes the game a little bit. Yeah. And like there's things that's really fun to me, solving tough challenges that come up,
like strategic things. When you talk about developing people, so what are the different skills that a senior salesperson would have as compared to an entry level?
Yeah, it's crazy. So I think entry level, you learn like how to write really persuasive emails and to deal with rejection really well. Us LDS folk,
we've had some experience.
It's a different thing, in sales. But so you get really persuasive via email. You learn how to be like talk really smoothly and clearly on the phone to convince someone to take a meeting. And that as you level up and become a more senior salesperson, you start to work with high level business owners, and you have to like, there's something in the sales world we call multi-threading. If you're selling a law firm that's 250 people, you kind of need to get everyone involved. So the operations department, all the paralegals, the associate attorneys, the partners, the managing partner. So multi-threading is this concept where you're working your way into all these groups of folks and convincing them that Hona is going to help their firm. That's such a cool skill. It's almost like you're a politician. You have to win people over and find your way. Hey, would you mind introducing me to the head of the paralegals? I think that it would be really cool for them to see this because I think it's going to affect them and how they run their day-to-day. Yep, so there's like these different skills that you learn, and I think they're super beneficial for life. So
yeah, absolutely. And so So that is great to see. What are some of the challenges? What are hard things that have happened for you?
Oh, I mean, people, like,
Yeah.
I think one of the hardest things, they say that if you start to see an employee or a leader in your company and you get extremely concerned with their performance or their culture fit,
Yeah.
you're 4 months too late because you shouldn't have hired them in the first place. And now you have to let them go, find someone else, ramp them up.
Mm-hmm.
And so the hardest thing to me, by and large, is finding the right people, making sure they're doing well. And sometimes, like quite a few times, it's not the right fit and you have to let people go.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been tough because, like, in this business, like, I've hired so many people that I know.
Right.
I had to let people go that I've worked with in the past that I love, and it just wasn't the right fit.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the big ones.
Yeah, that's something that's so hard on entrepreneurs, I think. And when you let someone go, what's the positive way to do that? Like, I've had a little bit of experience in that area, and if someone's really not a fit, they often realize it, right?
Yeah, I think so. And, like, I think you have to be really clear as their whole tenure at your company if they're meeting expectations or not. And that's something that I've failed at sometimes. Like, I haven't told them, we need this, you're not doing it. So if it doesn't happen in a month, then we're gonna have to let you go. I think so anyway, setting expectations is really helpful. Another thing that's helpful, I found, is people don't listen. After you tell them they're fired, they don't hear the next things you say.
Uh-huh.
So the best way to do it's like ripping off a Band-Aid is like to pull them in a room and say, I'm sorry, but we have to, terminate your employment for X, Y, Z reason. Thank you. And walk out the room.
Yeah.
It's really sad to do it that way, but it's the best way. And
Mm-hmm.
you think it's kind of like tough love.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you're not going to hear me. You're going to get confused. And you give them reasonable explanations. Like, you need to tell them why. And you can entertain some, but it's not worth trying to explain everything. It's just, it's hard on both parties. So,
yeah. So you mentioned multi-threading and when you're marketing to law firms. I completely understand that. Law firms are slow to adopt technology. I remember in 2003 when I was at the law firm, they were switching from WordPerfect to Word, and everyone hated it. So how hard is it to sell to a law firm?
It's not easy. They're a different breed of people. They're more analytical. They learn that in law school. So oftentimes that means they can be slower to make decisions.
Mm-hmm.
That's not always the case. A lot of the times, if they're a smaller law firm, they're probably more entrepreneurial and they're quick decision makers. So, but they're smart, which is fun to sell to because they get things. You can propose a point and they understand right away. Yeah. They're also extremely good negotiators. So, like, we have to make our price a little more flexible. Like, our product isn't something that we say, it's X dollars a month, here you go. It's like, it's X dollars a month if you can buy now, and we'll negotiate. If you give me a referral, I'll lower your price. Like, it's tough. So that's some of the things I've learned selling to them. But they're fun people because it's not like selling, I don't know. They're just intelligent. So they get things quick.
I think you're probably not going to offend them. Like, as a group of attorneys, like, you can be pretty blunt and that's going to go over okay. I suspect that they're probably a long-term client. A law firm is not going to want to switch software again if they don't have to. Is that the case?
It is. That's very, like, if they adopt something and they put the time in to implement it, they're very sticky. So that's great.
That's good. And so between your prior experience and working with Hona, have you seen any other opportunities in the legal space? If someone were to start up another tech company, what are some other problems they face?
There's so much, especially with AI right now. Mm-hmm. I think, of all the verticals, there's many verticals that you can sell into, but legal is being disrupted by AI the most. Because if you think about the product of a lawyer, it is written communication or oral communication, and they're typically summarizing large, chunks of data and making a document. And so I see companies popping up left and right being funded we summarize all this information with a large language model and we produce this very specific niche document that lawyers need, and we can do it in 1/10 of the time. And so that, like, you could find a document right now and and produce it with AI, and you have a company. It's crazy.
Yep.
So there are all sorts of opportunities in the legal space.
Mm-hmm.
Plus with like, not just on that front, but like operationally, like you said, they are behind the times a little bit. And so if you can find an efficiency in their day-to-day operations, you can come up with a product as well.
Oh, totally agree. Most law firms are somewhat financially mismanaged, I think, just because they don't have the experience, they don't want to do it. And so probably huge financial opportunities there. So at BOU, we have many students who are working in labs. They're technical. Maybe it's not in the legal space. It's more likely to be in the hard sciences or something, and might have never thought of being an entrepreneur. For someone like that, what's a good way to get started with entrepreneurship?
I think the best way to start with entrepreneurship is it's really an experiment. So with our product in the early days of our company, we had an idea, and I actually went out and sold this idea before we had written a line of code. So I think that's the best way to approach this. What we did was we made a Figma mock-up of our software, presented it to some law firms, and said, this is, we're selling this product. It can be out by X date. It costs $2,500 a year, or whatever it was. Yeah. And will you buy it if it's out by that time? And we got 5 signed contracts of people agreeing to pay us if we got the product out by that time. And that was enough for us to say, let's try this out. This is going to work. Yeah. So I think if you're thinking about it, try and experiment. Go out there and experiment. We still run experiments internally with our product. So a product manager internally will go and sell our new product ideas to our current customers. And if we can get enough signed contracts, we put the resources to that and we build the product. So I think if there's even a hunch or a thought or an idea, go out and test it. And if you start to see traction, I think send it. It's one of the most fun journeys you can go on in life. So that'd be my advice.
Well, and a lot of people, if they're looking for traction, trying to validate an idea, they'll send out surveys and say, would you buy this? Or what do you think of this? But there's no substitute for a signed contract from someone, right?
For sure. I think the surveys are good, but and I think there's nothing wrong with that. But I do think selling it is really where, the rubber meets the road. I think the other thing I would say, try and experiment. The other thing I was thinking about is join a startup and see if you like that. I think I took a job making less than I should because I thought it was cool and it was an opportunity. And I learned so much there because I was, maybe employee 25 or whatever at that company. You get to see so many aspects of the business. So if you're thinking maybe entrepreneurship is the path for me, I would really go and look at a small company and try to work there, like Hona. Come to Hona.
So work to learn, but you can also potentially get stock options or something else to make it worthwhile.
Yeah, totally. Get stock options, make money, and learn. So,
yeah. Recently, I ran into a law school alumni of mine who's a BOU grad too, and he was telling me he's in Colorado, and now he's working remotely for a startup in Silicon Valley. He said, I get paid less, but I get stock options. So anyway, so there's something to that. That was a pretty good idea.
Yeah, totally. If you're seeing that, the cool thing about stock options is I think about my equity and my employees' equity. It's their value is doubling every 6 or 9 months. It's crazy. People can make real money with those. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, great. So last question. We've talked about artificial intelligence, how it's changing things. There are other technologies. It seems, especially for a student, it must seem like the market's crazy. It's just changing so fast. So what things don't change? Like in the legal industry, what are you counting on being the case in the future?
Relationships. One of our primary forms of marketing is going to trade shows. And so much of our business has come from going to a trade show, saying, hey, do you want to go to dinner? Hey, let me, let's go to the bar and talk and just chat. And that never changes. And it's cool to see the best marketers and salespeople will always have, they'll always win. So I think that's big. Yeah.
Okay. Well, fantastic. Well, hey, Manny, thanks for taking the time. It's been super interesting. You have a great business, Hona. Like you say, people can find you at Hona.com. Is there anywhere else they should look?
Hona.com, people often go to our Our marketer is amazing. So check out our social pages. You'll probably laugh at our page. We've got some good stuff. Hona Legal is our Instagram. I think most of our accounts. So say look at those 2 places.
Okay, great. Well, we'll check it out. Thanks again.
Thanks, Dave.